Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. It's Wednesday, September 20th, 2023, Ross Board of Education work session. Mr. Castaner, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Van Winkle,
Yes.
Mrs. Webb,
Here.
Mr. Kleinfelder,
Present and on time.
Mr. Chanel,
Here.
and Mrs. Hayes is absent.
Did you call my name?
I did.
Okay, good.
Here first.
Okay, I'm present and late. I got half my
Welcome.
grass cut. Dr. Kunkel, the floor is yours.
Yes, well, thanks for having us. Agenda tonight, 3 items. First one is the report card, just got released a couple days ago. So Mr. Richards will give us an update on the report card. We'll get into Aaron's Law, which is a new law that was impacted here this school year, and then we'll get into the PI account. And those are the 3 work session items. Mr. Richards, floor is yours. The
All
state
right.
report card.
All right, thank you. Very excited about this presentation, at least the first half. Very good news on our state report card, and so we'll jump right into it. Lead with this question, because I think often when we get into the data conversation, anytime there's a report card or state testing or whatever, we can easily lose sight of this. And our purpose as a school district is to grow kids. We grow kids. And any measure that you see on a state report card reflects some sort of growth, but as we unpack it tonight and then at the next board meeting with the building level report, we'll also connect it to the growth we see in our kids every single day. So what do we have in this presentation? State report card overview for the district, some comparisons among our district and some other local districts, and then we'll get into, as Dr. Kunkel said, a new law that the state has adopted. We are not the first state to have this law on the books, but we are, as always, got the law handed down to us, and we are trying to sift through the guidance to implement in a way that makes sense for our district. So, first of all, state report card. Lead with this quote from world soccer great Pele. And I think this report card, what we're about to go through, really does reflect the hard work, the dedication, the commitment to kids that our staff has, first and foremost, and then also the families in this community and their commitment to ongoing education. So this is an explanation of how the state comes up with the overall rating. So we'll get into how we did specifically, but I know in talking with some of the individuals on the board here recently, we talked about what the state uses to calculate the number of stars, some of the different components, et cetera. So the report card measures 6 different areas, and 5 of those areas are reported. So there's the achievement component, there's the progress component, the early literacy component, the graduation component, and the gap closing component. Those are all calculated areas that contribute to the overall rating. The college, career, workforce, and military readiness component is a report-only component at this point. But my guess, my crystal ball, that will likely be a calculated component at some point in the future. So there are the percentages that each of these components is weighted. You see the top 2 are the achievement and the progress component, and then you've got early literacy, graduation, and gap closing are a little bit lesser weight. So without further ado, and you've all seen this news at this point, but I'm very proud to report that the Ross Local School District did earn 5 stars as a district, 5 stars out of 5, and additionally, we were the only 5-star district out of the 10 districts in Butler County. Just a monumental achievement, once again a reflection of all the hard work and dedication of our staff members. So there are specific component scores. Once again, those are outlined in stars on this. We'll get into more specifics here on some of the components. So achievement, 4 stars, progress, 4 stars, gap closing, graduation, and early literacy were 5 stars. So district achievement, and this is what educators often use as the measure to rank districts or buildings. So you'll hear administrators talking about their performance index. It's like Christmas in September, I guess, when they get those performance indexes out. and then you can actually rank your district, your building, whatever, against fellow districts and buildings. So we were at 87.9%, scored 95.6 of a possible 108.8 points. Just to mention, the measure, the top measure, the 108.8 is an average of the top 2% of the state. So they take the top 2% achievement scores of the state and average those, and that's what creates that benchmark, or that total number of points. So we scored 95.6. We were the top performance index, top PI in Butler County, and we were 9th among local districts when you throw in Hamilton County as well. Our PI was within 1 point of last year. Important to note here, and once again, we'll unpack this a little bit more at a future date when we get to building level data. But our advanced quintile, which is all the way over to the right, actually grew 2.4 points. 2.4 points is a lot of points when you're talking about a school district. PI down at the bottom equals achievement, and that's a repeat from the previous slide. In progress, and so this is a measure that the state instituted a couple of years ago, a calculated measure, and this scores how our students grow from year to year. And so obviously this is a very important component in terms of education as a whole. We, in 15 of 18 areas that are scored that you see reflected in that table, 15 of 18 areas, we exceeded or significantly exceeded expected student growth. And then down at the bottom, this is something, for a long time we looked at PI only, and that's what we used, but progress is oh so important, and we're proud to say that our students are both achieving, so in terms of proficiency, and growing from year to year. So state report card comparisons. These are the top 10 district performance index measures from the whole local area. So this is Hamilton and Butler County, okay? And you'll see that, once again, we were the top performing district according to performance index in Butler County with 95.575, and then everybody above us is a Hamilton County school, and I'll just give you a second to look through some of the names on that list.
Why do we only have 4 stars on that page?
What's that?
Why do we list as 4 stars there?
Because the 95, it's one of the components, and 95.575 out of 108, there's a percentage they use for the 5 stars and the 4 stars.
Performance index is 4 stars.
Correct.
But overall, we got a 5.
Correct.
Yes.
Based on all 5 calculated components and their different weights.
Makes sense.
I know it's disappointing, Mr. Kleinfelder, but
I thought you made a mistake, but
no, I did not.
I was wrong.
I double checked it. Performance index comparison, we'll get into the building level here because there's some really good news here. Elementary, now something to note about elementary, when the state refers to elementary, it's some combination of pre-K through 6. And so that varies from district to district. In Butler County, there are 47 such districts. In Hamilton County, there are elementaries. And in Hamilton County, there are 103 for 150 total. Proud to report that Morgan was the top performing elementary in Butler County at the number 1. And then when you throw Hamilton County in, they were number 11. Elda, very close behind. A lot of great growth happening in Elda. Number 3 in Butler County, and number 24 with Butler and Hamilton combined. And then you throw RIS, the intermediate school, in that mix as well, because it is a combination within that elementary definition. And they were number 5 on the list, and number 28 with the combined Butler and Hamilton County. So we had our 3 elementaries were in the top 5 elementaries between the 2 counties, which is very impressive. So kudos to those buildings. Middle school and high school. Middle school, once again, some combination of 5th through 8th. Butler County, we've got 16 total. Hamilton County, 22 for a total of 38. And then high school is some combination of, I say K through 12 because there are entries in this list that are 6 through 12 buildings. Honestly, there's a K through 12 building that shows up as a high school. So Butler County, there are 14. Hamilton County, there are 42 for a total of 56. You see Ross Middle School in Butler County was number 4 out of 38, 16. Butler and Hamilton County, they were number 14th out of 38. And then the high school, Very proud of this. Number one high school in Butler County, and then number 24 out of 56 total when you combine Butler and Hamilton County. So a lot of great news in this category of performance index. Now, when you get to value added is another way to describe progress, that progress component. And we've got the list of local school districts here. This is the top 10 list. You'll see Ross Local School District coming in at 10th. Once again, look at the districts above us. And I didn't have enough room on the slide to include the districts below us, but some of it is shocking. A lot of negatives, which means that those kids aren't meeting expected growth. So we are once again exceeding expected growth as a district for our students. I threw this in there just on the heels of the financial struggles that we've had, because this to me tells a very powerful story. This is on the report card site. So if you go onto the ODE site and you look at the report card site, you can look up any district in Ohio, and you can see this spending information about that district. So state averages are based for us, and obviously anybody in this range. They categorize it by enrollment. So any district that has between 2,500 and 4,999 students, they take that, and then that's how they calculate these averages. So Ross Local Schools spends $1,232 per pupil less than the state average. We receive roughly 1/3 of the state average of federal funds, so that's our title funding that we get from the federal government. And this is a chart that includes performance index on the left and spending per pupil on the right. And I think that's very telling indeed. So a lot of those top districts from Hamilton, Butler County combined are ahead of us, but then you look and they're spending sometimes thousands of dollars more per pupil than we are able to spend here in Ross Local Schools. I've included some resources here. Board of Education, you'll have access to this PowerPoint if you don't already, and you'll be able to get on and you can look at, once again, any district, any building level report card data that you so choose. And also, once again, at a future board meeting, I think October, if I'm not mistaken, we will actually get into some of the building level data from the report card. I'd like the opportunity to speak with our building level administration, get some of their insights, get some of their perspective on the matter before I present on that. So any questions about the report card before we transition to the next part of this presentation?
Dr. Mr. Kleinfelder, do you have anything?
No,
Any questions?
not right now.
Mr. Chanel,
Nothing for me.
any comments? Nope. Amy? Ms. Webb?
And Jake, not that I expect you to have this information like readily
I'll try.
available right now, but just like in looking in some of the data, like how does this compare? Like how do some of these areas compare to like last year's
So
information? Like areas that we were like really good, just speaking of value added and
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
the same
And-
subgroup of kids.
And so on value added for our staff is not out yet. So it's all calculated for building and district level. I have not dug in too much into value added at this point. Performance index, I did include that wherever it is, right there. Yeah, so that includes the past 5 years. And that's all relatively in line. Once again, one of the big changes was that we grew more in the advanced quintile than we had previously. Yeah. But yeah, so I will include that information at the next session.
Right. Well, it's just sometimes like, you got a question, like, was it just a test?
Test-based, yeah,
Was
right.
it test-based?
Right.
Or, is that maybe subgroup kind of showing this consistent results?
Right, yeah,
trend
absolutely,
data over the
absolutely.
years, so that was all.
Yeah, and when we get into more of the grade level stuff, I'll definitely highlight some of that.
Cool, thank you.
Jake,
Yes.
I'm probably going to save comments for the end.
Okay.
At the end of at the end of a meeting.
Okay.
When we get our 5 minutes. But just on the ELDA rating, which really pops off. Morgan's been kind of at the top for a long, long time, and then ELDA. Tell us a little bit about, if you don't mind, where they were and then some strategies on how ELDA, I mean, to me, that was one that was like, if I remember, and I don't have a great memory, but 4 or 5 years ago, it was like a discussion that everybody was
Right.
talking about.
Yeah.
So much to the point where I think even last year, Dr. Kunkel even had it as one of his goals as a superintendent. So tell us where they were and a little bit about
Yeah.
how they got there. It didn't just happen by mistake.
No,
So there
absolutely
was-
not. No, there was a whole
Talk
lot
a little bit
of
about that.
blood, sweat, and tears, and we've got some staff members in here who can attest to that. So I don't have numbers off the top of my head about where we were, but as you said, it was a point of concern in the past 5 years. But I know that at the building level at ELDA, Mr. Hall, the principal there, has been leading the charge in teacher-based teams, so TBTs, that actually they hone in on the data connected to our individual students, and then focus instruction, implement instructional strategies that help that our staff then help those specific students to make those gains. And so I think that we're seeing evidence of that work that he started, 3 years ago, to implement those TBTs. And so we're now finally seeing the reward. Not finally. I mean, there's been reward, trending up. But that's a testament to that. I think that is the most critical element of that trend.
Yep,
Yeah.
good. Like I said, I'll save comments for later, but
Okay. Great.
I knew it was something like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anything else? Anybody, any comments?
Yeah, just let me say, Jake, first of all, thanks for the presentation. Very impressed with you and Tracy and obviously senior leadership, all the administrators, the teaching staff. These results from what we've gone through the past couple of years, very impressive. So kudos to the staff. We work hard each day to give the best education possible for our kids. This is a reflection of that. So just want to say congratulations to the staff. This is a good win for the district, and we'll continue, obviously, to grow our district. So kudos to you.
Absolutely. All right, so now we're going to transition, completely unconnected topic. This is Aaron's Law. So Aaron's Law, I'll give an overview of the law. This was passed with this latest budget bill, and we are now required to implement Aaron's Law at the school level starting now. So for this school year, there are these requirements that I'll explain here. And this is a quote I threw in here because I know stuff like this, when it comes down from the state, from the legislation, and then goes to ODE, and they're trying to sift through it to figure out guidance to then hand down to us. It sure seems like it's one more thing on the plate that is ever overflowing. So this quote here spoke to me. We must protect families. We must protect children who have inalienable rights and should be loved, should be taken care of physically and mentally, and should not be brought into the world only to suffer. And so connected back to the first question in this presentation, what's our purpose as a school district? It's to grow kids. And I think especially lately, as a district, we've started to really focus on the whole child, and start to implement some strategies, some programs that help do that. And we're going to try to include this, our implementation of Aaron's Law and Save Students Act, which we're not going to get into tonight. There's just not enough time for that. But we're gonna include it into our focus on the whole child. So, Aaron's Law background is named after Erin Marin, who is a childhood sexual abuse survivor. She is from Illinois. This was the state that first adopted this legislation. The goal of the law is to instruct children, parents, and school personnel in preventing child sexual abuse. Important to note there, Ohio is the 38th state to enact legislation. So the 38th state to enact legislation. We saw it coming, and then now it's here, and we're going to handle it. So the ORC requirements. So this is Ohio law. Requires instruction in prevention of sexual abuse and dating sexual violence for students and staff, K through 12. K through 6, it's a 1-hour focus on sexual abuse prevention annually. So every year, our K through 6 students will receive instruction on sexual abuse prevention. And then 7 through 12, they treat that as a grade band. So 7 through 12, there must be 1 hour during a student's experience, 7 through 12, of focus on dating and sexual violence prevention. So our plan, and once again, I referred to, I can't remember if it was in this session or a meeting earlier at this point, but building the plane as we're flying it, this certainly applies to this, what we're doing here. So once again, state legislators enacted this law, passed it down to the Ohio Department of Education. It's not its name anymore, it's the Department of Education and Workforce, maybe. So DEW. It's a little harder to say that. I'm going to call it ODE until they officially change their name. So ODE gets the legislation, and then they work around the clock to provide guidance to school districts. That guidance then trickles out, and we at this local level, we wait for that trickle, and then we have to act immediately. And so you'll see that this is what I'm going to outline here is kind of our first step in implementing Aaron's Law in Ross Local Schools. So K through 12, our implementation goals with Aaron's Law is to continually engage with regional authorities to appropriately satisfy the requirements. Obviously, we need to satisfy the requirements, but we want to do so in a responsible way that's not going to further burden our staff members or provide any information or any situation where our kids and families feel uncomfortable. And so the Hamilton County Educational Service Center has kind of taken the charge on this. And they are working. They've got a team dedicated to this specific Aaron's Law and House Bill 123, which is actually called Save Students. And so we've been working closely with them about the implementation, some of the tools that they're endorsing that are state approved. The state they have various programs that are state approved, and then there's an open window for folks to submit additional programs for approval. That's there's a gray area there, like people I know have submitted programs, and then it kind of just sits there, nothing happens. So as I'll show you, we've chosen a program, at least for the 7-12 level, I'll get into here shortly. One of our other goals is to provide expert, put that in quotes, expert programming for both students and staff. So once again, Aaron's Law specifically revolves around a topic that's potentially uncomfortable for our staff members to try to instruct on. And so we don't want to put our staff members in a position where they have to do something they don't feel comfortable doing. And then to communicate our implementation process to families in a timely manner. I'll talk more specifically about that here shortly. So our 7 through 12 instructional model. Once again, grades 7 through 12, those students have to receive 1 hour of focused instruction in the 7 through 12 grade span. And so we are going to utilize our health class, because that's a class that all of our students will take. And obviously there is a connection in terms of topics to some of the topics that our health class covers. So Ross Local Schools, we're going to partner with COCA, which is the Council on Child Abuse, to provide students instruction and prevention of dating and sexual violence. And so they will actually be coming in on October 5th to provide that programming to the students who are in health during this quarter. So they will provide that instruction, and then in second quarter, when new ninth graders enter that health class, they'll receive that same program, and then on third and fourth quarter. Families, so this is important to note, families can opt out of this instruction, and that will be part of the communication that they receive tomorrow. So we will be sending out an email to the families of students who are in health currently. Okay, so we're taking a very targeted approach, especially early on, as the state kind of sifts through some of the requirements and some of the best practice surrounding this law. So this will be a chance for us to, I hesitate to use the phrase check the box, but if those ninth graders in that health class, it's a quarterly class, so when they leave, we don't have them as an audience in that class anymore. So that's why we felt as a district it was important for us to take this step, at least for this small part that is relatively controllable early in the year like this. This is something that I quote unquote vetted with Hamilton County, our partners at Hamilton County. They said this is a great model, and so we'll implement it, and we will navigate the rest of it moving forward. So our K through 6 instructional model, once again, we're working with Hamilton County ESC to determine most appropriate instructional model for implementation in the spring. So we have to implement this at some point during the school year. And I know a lot of districts that when we got word of this officially happening, a lot of folks were panicking. Said, well, how in the world are we going to do this starting in 4 weeks from now? Well, that's where a lot of folks have started to say, well, let's just press pause. We'll get all the information we need, and then we'll be able to do something more responsibly in the spring. And that, once again, is we have to provide 1 hour annually for all students K through 6, which is a complicating factor, especially if we do have a third party coming in to present that, because many more students we have to address
So
with that.
7-12 gets 1 hour, one time.
1 hour, one time during
That's
7th through 12th.
probably the most, should be probably the most sexually active. I mean, they're more likely to get in trouble than a kindergarten. So a kindergartner through 6th grader is going to get 6 hours, and middle school and high school kids are going to get 1. That's what you're telling me.
Correct. According to
That's
the
what
law,
the
that's
state of Ohio.
yes, that is the law. Now, obviously, and to your point, Mr. Kleinfelder, the programming is different. The
Well, I understand that.
program for 7th through 12th is going to be much different than K through 6. And that's, once again, why we really hesitate to do anything at this point with K through 6. We're going to kind of let the dust settle to figure out what's responsible and what makes sense for our community.
Jake,
Yeah.
so when when I first heard about this, like, I know you said the council is gonna,
Yes.
come in for high school and 7th through 12th. Does it have to be like certain personnel? It can't just be a staff member that teaches it. It has to be like, even
Correct.
sometimes like they said, like police officers,
Well,
right?
so early on, once again, when this first
Right,
came
that's what I-
down, we
that's
were
what I
like, oh
remember
my
reading
goodness,
about.
yeah. And we thought initially that our staff members had to be trained by a law enforcement officer who actually has experience with child sexual abuse. That was a caveat in the law. Or a trained medical provider who could provide this information to our staff, who would then turn around and provide it to our students. Obviously, especially educators in the room, you can imagine the concern.
Right.
The twist there is that, once again, we have to train staff in this annually, and that's what needs to be provided by an approved vendor or a law enforcement officer, or it was an attorney, right? An attorney who's prosecuting, who's dealt with the topic. Yeah. So we all kind of breathed the collective sigh of relief when, once again, the various powers that be said, wait a second, you can do this, which is good news for us.
Thank you.
So staff training, I put might there, emphasize that. I'm in conversation with the Council on Child Abuse. They do have staff training, and at this point it's just a matter of scheduling with them. They're working through their schedule right now to see if we can do, at least for the 7th through 12th grade portion of this law, we can train our staff in parallel with the rollout. And so one of my concerns with this, I know our concern with this, is that we can present the programming to students, but if our staff is not, they're not aware of it, they're not equipped to handle any of the fallout after this presentation, because when you go in and you present to kids about anything potentially sensitive, then that obviously increases the discussion that happens around that presentation. And so we want to make sure that to the best of our ability, our staff is at least cognizant of what's going on. So once again, that might occur in October here. But we also know that Public School Works, who we're not affiliated with anymore, but Abre, who is the tech company that we work with, Public School Works is working on a virtual PD option that allows our staff members to go through the presentation and then to be able to say, yeah, I did the training. And Abre has stated that they're working on their own version of that we will be able to access. So there's the implementation timeline. Once again, you see some TBDs there. You see some generalities there because we are working on this as the guidance comes out. So in October, we'll have 9th grade health instruction. We'll continue to plan our K through 6 portion of this. And then in December, same thing. In February, we hope to, at that point, be able to say, this is what we're doing with staff training, continue the 9th grade health instruction, and then April, finish it up with much of the same. And I've linked some resources there, the Aaron's Law website, the Council on Child Abuse website, and then the ODE interpretation and guidance on this law. I'll give you the warning that that's a slippery slope if you get into that information. So, questions about Aaron's Law specifically?
Yep. Mr. Kleinfelder, do you have any?
I have about 1 million, but.
Yeah, me too.
On October 5th, when this group's coming to do the high school health classes, there's a makeup day, because what about kids that are absent that day, on a field trip, gone, somebody's gonna have to track all that.
It's a great question.
If I were a high school if I were an administrator at any level, I'd be fighting to get 100% parent opt-out notes on as much of this as I could get. Not that I'm against the concept, I'm concerned that on October 6th, Chad's phone's gonna blow up, our email's gonna blow up, because some parent's gonna ignore all the warnings that they got about what their kids were gonna hear in health class, and then they're gonna be shocked that their kid come home with a packet or talked about
Yep.
it or whatever, and it's gonna be a huge problem. I mean, that's just,
I think we can do what we can do.
I'm not
and
shooting the messenger, I know it's the law, I just read the ORC version while you were going through some of this. They didn't send a packaged curriculum or the experts to use or whatever. And I have some concern, I've had outside people come in and talk about stuff before. Do we know what the outside experts are gonna say when they're there for that 60 minutes? Do we have a canned curriculum that a
Yeah,
parent
we'll
can see?
have what their program's going to cover. Yes.
So parents
and
might
that-
not have chance to opt out ahead
And
of
so
time.
that is also another part of this law that I didn't touch on. Parents will receive a letter that is an opt-out letter that says this is part of Ohio Revised Code. This is what we have to do. You may choose to opt out. Sign here. Send it back. So that's part of that. But there is also a mention in the law of parents or guardians or family members, whoever, being able to request to review the material covered in the presentation within 48 hours. So not 48 hours of the presentation, but if they make a request, 10 days from now, and they say, we'd like to review the curriculum being covered, then we, by law, within that 48-hour window starting then, have to allow parents to review that. So I have a lot of questions too, Mr. Kleinfelder. We're going to do our best.
Mr. Schnell?
It's a great.
Is you said the 38th state?
Yeah.
Is the law uniform across all the states?
I'm not sure about that.
So I was
Yeah.
curious how Ohio's law compares.
Yeah,
to
I'm not
other.
sure about that. That's a great question.
And then it's not listed, but I'm assuming if we have an opt-out for the 9th graders, we would do the same for the K through 6 as
Yes,
well.
that's K through 12.
Well, it's
Yes.
not really, it was put in the budget bill as a mandate for us. It never passed legislative law in Ohio. It didn't go through the House and Senate.
Mm-hmm.
It got put in the budget bill, which they approved, so they didn't vote on
Snuck
it
it in,
individually.
right.
So it's backdoor political football that we're complying with 38 other states.
Yeah.
Great idea. I'm not against the concept. I think kindergarten probably that really bothers me, and I don't know what late age I would start talking about it with my own child, but I think not that young.
That's all I have.
Mrs. Webb?
How is that letter, is it like gonna be mailed home? Did you,
So-
forgive me if you already said.
No,
it was gonna be sent to parents.
I will send an email specifically to the families who have students in health class who are going to get this presentation on
Okay.
October 5th.
Okay,
They're going
which I
to
do.
get, they're going to get the letter. They're going to get a paragraph explaining, our district message on it. But you'll get a copy of the letter that has the opt-out language in it. And then they will also receive a paper copy that should go home tomorrow or Friday
Okay.
from health class. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of like with Keith, I also have a kindergartner, and I'm
Right.
kind of curious of what's going to be taught to my kindergartner. So
Yeah.
I'll probably be one of those parents who be like, yeah, I
Yeah,
want
no,
to
I
see this
understand.
material.
I understand. I can tell you that in my experience with this, which is limited at this point, in looking at some different curricular options, I mean, to even say, we're going to talk about child sex abuse to a kindergartner is a little bit misleading in the sense that it's not,
They
and that's where, you know, when it came out that
Like
it's got to be
boundaries.
yeah.
Like
it's-
about boundaries.
Right.
Right.
It's when it's got to be a police officer who's dealt with child sex abuse cases. Well, putting that person, I mean, God love them, but putting that person in front of a kindergartner and trying to talk in that language that would have been, in my mind, like, oh, wait a second. But as you know, in your experience in education, there are people working on how to make this developmentally appropriate. And that word, developmentally appropriate, is included in the Ohio Revised Code law, so.
Does it have to-
Go ahead.
I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
does it have to be opt-out? Can we make parents confirm one way or the other, opt-out or in?
I think the law
Just-
says opt-out.
Is it
Right.
opt-out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think that would be a local decision to say you have to, no, I don't know. I don't know.
Just more so from the point of making sure that
I
it's
just
been
know you're gonna
addressed by
get
real
calls.
parents, yeah.
After the fact.
School board,
Because no matter how many times you tell people, they don't look at, oh, I never opened that up, I didn't look
Right.
at it, I didn't look at, I don't have Facebook, I didn't.
We're just trying to follow the law
Right,
and
I
make
understand.
sure,
make sure it's
Agreed.
appropriate.
Yeah.
I
so we're in
understand that.
compliance.
I just think you're still gonna get calls.
I understand that.
Jake, just logistically, real quick again, because obviously I have a daughter, it's at a middle school age.
Right.
But the law says in a timely manner, families have to be informed. So will the information that's being taught or talked about come well before the opt-out?
It'll be,
Because I know you said they have to request it.
that's within the law. And so prior to when they're going to receive this information, it's very unlikely that we'll send out, here's the pages of curriculum that they're going
Because
to.
why would I'm just thinking about my family, but why would Amanda say, yeah, go ahead and talk to Mia about it and not have a clue what the hell they're going to talk about?
so can we get the curriculum on our website so people can have access to it? Is that possible?
Yeah, I'm sure it is, yeah.
Okay. And then,
Because then that way they
Yeah,
can.
that way.
Sure.
Because, I mean, just Amanda covers these things for the Van Winkle household, but, and I hate talking about my family in a board meeting, but if she knows what's going to be talked about, and then when Mia gets home that night, it could be a
Right.
conversation
Leads
like,
to
hey,
more
how did
appropriate
this go?
conversation,
Boom,
right,
boom, boom.
right.
It could be worth it. Or Amanda sees this and says, there ain't no way in hell I want people talking about this to my kid, opt
Right,
out. Does
right.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does, it does.
I know you're just flying off the cuff here.
trying-
I
we're
get it.
trying,
I
yeah.
totally get it. It's not,
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that we are choosing to focus on it like this in these segmented,
yeah.
because we're it's a very targeted population to start with
Yeah.
that we feel is a little more controllable, whereas K through 6 is a.
Oh, yeah.
a
I mean, I'm
much-
trying to get Charlie to tie his shoes. It's like,
This is a step up from
Yeah.
that,
yeah,
at least conversationally.
yeah. It's good information. I mean, I'm glad you covered it tonight because it is,
Well,
the more you get out,
right,
the better it's going to probably make his day, but
yeah.
are people going to see
absolutely.
it? I hope they do. I mean, it's important.
Yeah, and we'll save the Save Students Act for a later board meeting, because there are more parts of that, so.
Yeah. I
all
love
at
how
once.
this has everything to do with the budget bill. And
Right,
they throw it in there, but, cool. Thanks, Jake. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Nope.
thank you.
I'm glad the teachers aren't stuck with this.
sure. And Jake's done a great job of just understanding this law and trying to implement it. So again, it's like building the airplane as we're flying.
Right.
But we'll get there. All right, let's transition into the PI account. There are copies here for the audience. Board members, you have copies
The
in front of
copies
you.
for the audience up in the front?
Yep, right here on this front chair.
Good job, Jake.
Yep,
I know
nice
you're
job.
just a messenger.
So, Steve, you want to talk about PI account, what it is, and how it's funded? You want to start there, maybe?
Yeah, so this is our, I'll call it a planning spreadsheet that we use for our permanent improvement account, which is our 003 account. As you can see from the top left-hand side there, the primary way that this is funded is through a portion of the property tax dollars that come through several times a year. So And give you just a little hint as you look at it, I'm a color coding kind of guy, so things that you see in green are things that are already done. So that $483,491 amount that's listed for FY24 under September receipt, that is the actual amount that came in September. Things that are in yellow are kind of in progress. Most of those are in the project portion of things. So I will caution you as you look through this, this is not a dollar for dollar accurate financial detail, I would say, of the permanent improvement count. It is more of an estimating kind of project planning sheet that we use. So you can see the estimated revenue that comes in. As I mentioned, most of that comes in from property tax revenue. We do have a couple other line items in there. If you look under FY23, you'll see a $45,000 entry. That was a State of Ohio bus grant that we received to help offset the cost of purchasing a new bus. We're hopeful that they roll that program out again this year. We have not seen any details on that yet. And then at the very bottom there, an E-rate reimbursement. Those are funds we get from the federal government for technology type projects. One of the items you'll see on the sheet for this year is a rather large expense for wireless access points. We replaced all the wireless access points throughout the district at a cost of about $301,000, but we are receiving $177,832 in E-rate reimbursement for that. So as I mentioned, this is not a financial detail sheet, but what we try to do is look at our projected revenue. So the orange column, the orange box there under FY24, 1.590721, that's what we're projecting is going to come in from all those receiving sources. And if you flip to the back side, you'll see the projected total expenditures for the same year, 1.32. So obviously we're trying to keep our revenue ahead of our expenditures. So there could be a carryover balance that goes from year to year, which would be good to be able to build that up a little bit. And we try to take this sheet and run 10 years out. So we've just recently updated this. It is a living and breathing document. Dr. Conkle and I are in this, if not daily, weekly. In fact, if you look at it right now, there's a couple adjustments even from when this was printed 2 days ago, because we're maybe have the opportunity to purchase an additional bus this year at a pretty discounted rate. So we're trying to look and see if we can figure out a way to do that. But these are needs that are assessed from our facilities committee. We have an active facilities committee that meets just about monthly, and we go through and with the help of our technology director and our facilities and maintenance folks, our athletic department, we're looking at the needs and planning out the projects that we think we can accomplish with these funds over the course of the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. So just a point of reference, if you look at column FY24, which is kind of confusing, fiscal year 24 starts July 1st of last summer.
Yeah.
So we're in fiscal year 24 now. Mm-hmm. So July 1st, 23 until June 30th of next summer will be in fiscal year 24. So Steve highlighted the revenue. Let's go down and talk a little bit about the expenditures. If you look at, again, we're looking at column FY24. School bus purchases, you see there's $200,000 there. This is interesting. A school bus 3 years ago was what, 87,000? Mm-hmm. Now it's up to 140,000.
The new ones that we purchased
For one
starting
bus.
next year will be all in about 143,000 for one
So
bus.
it just tells you how much that has increased. So we have that built in. Just some highlights. You see the bus lease payment, garage payments there. We do have $50,000 for an emergency contingency in case something happens. I think it's good to have that as a planning tool. Last fiscal year, we did not use that amount, so that carried over, but it's kind of good to have that as a planning document. Mr. Baker has $40,000 a year to buy technology stuff. I know that he has used that budget, and we'll continue to monitor. It's important when especially with technology, it's outdated, every so many years. So we're trying to stay ahead of it. But we have some money budgeted into our PI account. Same thing with fine arts assets. If you go down below there, we gave Mr. Raymer $20,000 a year to purchase items for fine arts, and that goes back to what can you buy for a PI account, from a PI account. This is an account you can't pay salaries from. It has to be a permanent asset, and it has to last at least 5 years. So there are certain things that we can spend from this account, but again, it cannot be used for salaries or other stuff. It has to be used for an asset that will last you 5 years.
To that point,
yes.
just to, before you flip to page 2, the Johnson Controls, 75,000 in 2023, and going across there's 40 now. And yeah, I know you can't pay salaries, but that position that was created
Yes.
that came from the John Thomas vetting and so on and so forth, is that why that number went down?
Yep, so next board meeting, I'm going to ask the board to approve the new business operations plan. And that is where Mr. Huff will take over the HVAC side of this. We're projecting, again, this is a planning document. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's less than 40,000.
Correct.
But with Devin doing a lot of the preventive maintenance stuff, now, some of the bigger stuff he won't be able to do. That's where this 40,000 will come in. But hopefully, that new business model, that will help that amount. But again, remember, this is just a planning document.
I was just wondering why it went from 75 to 40.
Yeah,
If you go down to the bottom on the board agenda tonight is a approval for $120,000 fix
117, yeah.
for the middle school. I believe that's Garland Company.
Garland Roofing, yeah, it's a pretty significant repair of a section of the middle school roof that we've had problems with for the last several years.
So that's coming right out of that 120,000 that we have allotted for. So you can see there's, and we'll get to page 2 in a minute, a lot of conversation that comes through this document through facilities and finance committee.
Yeah.
Let's flip to page 2. You can see there's a parking lot, seal coating, $50,000. Steve talked about the wireless access points. We have a lot of $300,000, but remember, we're receiving $177 as a E-rate reimbursement, so that obviously helps. And then obviously you can see stadium lights on there for $28,000, district signs, RAS playground, we have an allotment of $21,000. I know Mr. Redinger is planning on upgrading the playground here next couple months, so that's put into the PI account. And I want to talk a minute about the high school track. The high school track is, I can't tell you how many years old, how old that is.
1991, was it
So
91?
going on,
I know Noel and I were in school. 93, yes, I think it was 91.
so our track is in very, very bad shape. We have tried to seal coat it the best we can in-house each year and try to put a patch on it. Unfortunately, anybody who goes to the track can notice that track is in bad shape. So we have allotted in the PI account over a 2-year time frame to replace the track. So the goal is next board meeting, we will have a proposal for a new high school track. That will, again, be on the board agenda in October, and then hopefully we'll break ground next summer for a new track. And again, that's obviously very, very much needed for our students.
Yeah, and it's a two-step process. So they remove the old surface and mill down the asphalt, which is the $160,000 cost. So that will be paid for out of fiscal year '24. It will take them essentially all summer to complete that project. So the final bill for the $215,000 of the new surfacing and striping will actually be paid in fiscal '25, somewhere probably in August, September, when that project is complete.
And we're gonna target those areas of underneath that, like at the home stretch there, it's got the big crack that goes about 80 yards.
Yeah, the old surface will all be removed, so it will actually go down to
You
the.
have to even go down farther to find out why that.
Right, and repair, add another thin layer of asphalt for the track to be able to adhere to. So it's a pretty, Bynum Track Company is who the proposal is through. They're the industry leader and have done a ton of tracks in this area. So we're confident it'll be it's gonna be a nice surface when it's all said and done.
What I like about this plan is we've hit technology, we've hit fine arts, we've hit athletics, we've hit all types of needs for our district. And I think, again, this is a planning document. We look at this on a regular basis, but I think it's a good step in the right direction.
Keith, maybe you can answer this. Sorry to put you on the spot. This permanent improvement plan has been obviously a working document when you were on the board prior, and it is currently today. The revenue, or maybe Chad can answer this, the revenue, say 6 years ago coming in, what was that prior to the inside mill?
300,000, I
It
believe,
was like
right?
300,000.
Yeah.
Approximately.
Yeah.
So when people say, hey, do you have a plan? Well, you can't have a plan unless you have revenue. So the revenue coming in now is a little more healthier. And just as a citizen that pays taxes for this district, I love the fact that we're finally hitting some of these things because we have the money to do it. It's no different than having a real estate like I do, and you got 21 rental properties. If you don't put money into them, it becomes a nightmare, which is that track right now.
And we have many more needs also.
I know that there's just so many.
I
There's
was
so many.
here from 2000 to 2006, the track was cracked badly.
Then,
All
yeah.
6 of those years, we spent probably tens of thousands of dollars patching.
Yeah.
And
There-
we didn't repair anything
Right.
until it broke.
And at the facility committee, there was 3 options to look at. A Taj Mahal, middle one was not really an option because it was very, just barely less than Taj Mahal, and then what we're getting,
This
which
is
is
the
significantly
baseline,
better.
Right.
But we didn't even go with what Edgewood just did, or Monroe, or somebody else.
But it's going to be nice, it's a
gonna
nice
be
track.
It's a
really,
great
really
service,
nice.
yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a good point too. If you look at, again, on that revenue column in the upper left, you can see last year, the April receipt for property tax in '23 was 608,039. So
Yeah.
moving forward this year, we're projecting 758. So that's a pretty significant increase, and that all has to do with the valuation increase that we've been talking about from Butler County. So as the property taxes go up, a larger portion of those not only come into our operating account, but into the PI account as well. So it does allow us to accomplish. We're way behind on facilities. We should be replacing, the state recommends you replace 8 to 10% of your bus fleet every year, and we didn't do that for years. So we're catching up on purchasing buses. You can see we're trying to purchase 2 buses a year if we can, to continue to turn over our fleet. But, you know, even as we found out today, new buses being 143,000, we're gonna have to adjust those numbers moving out on the plan as well. So, like I said, it's a living and breathing document. We're in this all the time, having constant communication about, you know, things we can accomplish with it, and we'll continue to move that process forward.
Mr. Kleinfelder, any,
Just a quick comment. I think Dr. Conkle hit the nail on the head. As part of the facilities committee, we're trying our best to kind of distribute the funds across all areas. To Sean's point, we're playing catch up in a lot of areas. So I think there's a lot of progress, and still a lot of progress to be made.
Good point.
appreciate all the effort you guys put into this document. I mean, it's good. Anything else in the work session? With that being said, we'll take a break. We will reconvene at 7 o'clock for our regular school board meeting.